Anybody heard anything about this Nosferatu movie? I heard about it, but I'm like, I didn't see Nosferat, so am I going to understand Nosferatu? Okay, I got one other one. Nosferatu is Spanish for Nosferatu. Anyway, so Robert Eggers' new take on the classic F.W. Murnau 1922 silent, frankly, ripoff of Dracula, Nosferatu, is in theaters and everybody's talking about it. And I'm late to the game, but if you're watching this video 3 years after I make it, it's old news. So everybody is talking a lot about this Nosferatu film, and why not just be another voice yelling into the void about it? I have seen and loved the original 1922 silent Nosferatu, uber classic of horror cinema, silent cinema. That's 1979 Werner Herzog remake with Isabelle Adjani and Klaus Kinski is also a classic. And now we have Robert Eggers taking a third stab at this story. And how is it? I thought it was quite good. And I'm a guy who hasn't really loved the Eggers thing. I'm not part of the Eggers fan base who just goes crazy over his very well made but very particular kind of films. If you don't know the name Eggers, you might know his films The Witch, or as I like to call it, The Vavitch, or The Lighthouse, or those are the only two I can think of right now. But Eggers, the Northman, which I think I've liked them more as they've gone along, actually. So this is the film of Robert Eggers I've liked the most, Nosferatu. I am a horror fan, so there's that. And I just thought it was wildly atmospheric. And let's get this thing out of the way right now. We don't call him Dracula. Here's the deal with Nosferatu. Nosferatu originally was an unauthorized film adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel Dracula. And it follows it relatively closely in terms of overall story and character, just different names and so forth. And the Stoker estate found out about this film back in 1922, sued to get it removed from theaters because it was an unauthorized adaptation of the novel of Dracula, and they set about destroying every copy of Nosferatu that existed. Luckily for the world and film scholars and horror fans, they didn't get them all, and it got out there and it remained out there in public domain and all that other stuff. So all of that is to say, I get choked up when I talk about rights issues. All of that is to say that Nosferatu is essentially more or less Dracula. So it is interesting for me to watch this take of Dracula this time, this take of Nosferatu this time, and keep reminding myself, okay, that's not Jonathan Harker, he's called something else. And that's not Lucy, she's called something else. And that's not Mina, she's called something else. And it's not Dracula, he's called Count Orlok. So if I refer to Orlok in this, I'm talking about what probably most people just call Nosferatu at this point. So everybody has their butts in a bunch over the fact that, spoiler, Count Orlok in this 2024 version of Nosferatu has a big bushy mustache. Some people find mustaches hilarious or bizarre. I don't know why. I don't know why people are losing their minds over the fact that that character has a mustache in this film. Going back historically, Dracula has a mustache in the novel. It's just that it's very, very rarely been depicted as such on screen. You've got the early 1970, I think, Jess Franco Count Dracula film with Christopher Lee with the mustache. You've got the Gary Oldman version that when Dracula comes to London, he's got a mustache. It's never been done. It's just not typical. And when people think of the classic Nosferatu image, which Murnau did it with Max Schreck in the original film, and then they did an updated version with Kinski in the Herzog film, this Orlok looks a bit different. I think this Orlok looks really creepy and disturbing. You don't see him a lot, but when you do, it's really unsettling. And to me, the mustache, when I talk about the mustache, to me, the mustache adds to that. When you first see Orlok in this film, it's in a very dimly lit castle. And that whole sequence, and much of the movie, it plays like a dream. It plays like a nightmare where you don't quite understand what's going on, especially in the context of what the main character is feeling as he goes into this castle. Who he thinks, I'll tell you the story. Basic story goes a little something like this. Nicholas Hoult plays our lead, what's his name, as I cheat on my notes, Thomas Hutter. Not Jonathan Harker, Thomas Hutter. Thomas Hutter is sent by his little real estate firm, let's say, legal firm, to go off to this Transylvanian castle in the middle of nowhere because this weird eccentric rich guy wants to resettle somewhere in Austria or Germany and buy an old crumbling castle so he can live there. And he has to go and take the guy. The guy wants to sign the papers in his own castle in Transylvania. So that's where Thomas Hutter goes to have that taken care of and winds up falling into the arms and control of Count Orlok, who is a creepy ancient vampire. At a distance, his wife, who is Ellen Hunter, not Mina Harker, Ellen Hunter, portrayed by Lily Rose Depp, yes, the daughter of. She is having weird visions and fits and fainting spells and all kinds of problems from a distance, and she is sort of remotely under the remote control, if you will, of Count Orlok. So there's a lot of back and forth in this film with what's going on with Thomas Hutter with Orlok in the castle, trying to do what he's supposed to do for his job, and then ultimately trying to survive. And Lily Rose Depp as Alan Hunter. No, we're not talking about early MTV VJs. Ellen Hunter back home trying to survive, and it's a whole. It all feels oppressively disturbing, horrific, and inevitable. Just the way the film is shot, the way Orlok is just so commanding. And Orlok, by the way, is portrayed by Bill Skarsgård, who you may know from multiple things, including Pennywise and the recent It films. You would never know watching this film. His vocal performance is amazing. He is just covered in makeup, so you would never understand visually who it is anyway. But back to the mustache thing, because most people can't let this alone, apparently. To me, it was very creepy when we first saw Orlok. He's in shadow. It's a very dimly lit room by maybe some candles or a fireplace. I think it's solely lit by one fireplace in a cavernous room. You can barely see him. It's really hard to make out his features. And this big black Sam Elliott kind of mustache over his mouth obscures his mouth, so you don't really even see his lips when he's talking. And you don't really see, does he have fangs or not? To me, it was just another added realm of it being unsettling. And yes, there's vampire nudity in the film, and that is additionally unsettling. The whole film is unsettling. It's incredibly shot, very well performed. Some would say overperformed, but very well performed. Apparently, Depp said that she based her performance on Isabella Gianni, who had co-starred in the 79 Herzog Nosferatu. She had based her performance somewhat on Isabella Gianni in Possession, and if you know anything about Possession, Isabella Gianni does not give a subtle performance in Possession. So there's that. There is one sequence we have Willem Dafoe as the Van Helsing character, though here he is Albin Eberhard von something. IMDb cuts off his name. You have some people you recognize in this. Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was recently, very briefly, in Craven and is in the upcoming 28 Years Later film, stars as Friedrich Harding, the friend of, I'm just throwing a lot of names around that would mean nothing if you haven't seen the film. He is basically, well, I'll use the actor names, it makes more sense. Aaron Taylor Johnson is the friend of Nicholas Hoult, who he and his wife, portrayed by Emma Corrin, who would have been Lucy in the Dracula world. She's Anna Harding in this. Those two are looking after the Depp character who's having fits and starts. They bring in Willem Dafoe as the professor, essentially Van Helsing, to see what is wrong with her. He discovers some bite marks on her chest, and then it becomes, we're dealing with a vampire here, and we need to use supernatural forces are at work, and we need to use any means necessary to keep this pestilence from coming to our shores. I'm not going to give away any more of the story, although you probably know. If you've seen Nosferatu, you know the story. It follows the original pretty closely. There is a moment where Van Helsing, I'm going to call him by the Dracula names on occasion, where Willem Dafoe goes to help out Depp, and essentially you're looking at a scene from The Exorcist. Now, I don't know if that really follows. I haven't seen the original Nosferatu or the 79 in a while. I don't know if they have a sequence quite like that where she's so in the throes of Orlok's control that she's writhing on the bed and speaking in tongues, but you get a little of that here. So if you're a fan of The Exorcist and you're sitting watching this Nosferatu film and you're like, boy, I really miss The Exorcist, I haven't watched it in a while, you get a little taste of it there. So the film is incredibly well made, well shot, well performed, I thought, and I really liked it. I thought this was really good. Best of the year? I don't know, but if somebody who loves horror movies, somebody who loves Hammer movies, this gives you a whiff of what a modern Hammer movie could look like if whoever owns the rights to Hammer had like a lot of money behind their company and not just like a low-budget indie company who can slap the name Hammer on things. This would have been worthy of a new Hammer title on it because it just has that feel of really high-quality production, costuming, performance, score, all the way across the board. It's like a classy horror movie, but it does not skimp on the saucy stuff. It's very sexual what is going on between Orlok and, I keep wanting to call her Mina Harker, and when he attacks people, it looks like there is a fornication situation, but it's really just blood drinking. I swear to God, it's really just blood drinking. There is one scene of a little with Jonathan Harker, gonna call him by the wrong name, and his wife, which was a little bit surprising. So you got your sex, you got your blood, you got your gore, you got your violence, you got your really unsettling stuff. It's kind of got it all. Everything you want at a holiday time film, at least when this has been released. So in theaters now, eventually streaming forever. Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Bill Skarsgård, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Willem Dafoe, in Robert Eggers' Nosferatu.